Hi, everybody, and welcome to this masterclass, part of the Stress and Burnout Summit. So today I'll be introducing you to the Legend Life Keystone Process. It's a process that will enable you to see the world as it actually is in reality and help you master stress in the process. So what have I told you? That much of the stress you experience doesn't actually come from life itself, but from how you see life. In this masterclass, I'll show you why we don't actually experience the world as it is. We experience it through our filters, our meanings, memories, and stress circuits. Today, we'll explore how perception shapes stress and how the Legend Life Keystone Process helps you see clearly, free from these distortions, and how that changes everything: your emotions, your choices, and your peace. So, how can it help you unlock clarity, truth, and calm by seeing life as it truly is, not through the filters of fear, expectation, or old conditioning? The Keystone Process is one of the central pillars of my whole self intelligence system. In architecture, a keystone is the stone that locks an arch into place. Remove it and the structure collapses. In Legend Life, whole self-intelligence, the keystone is the consciousness that holds your inner and outer world together. So it gives you a way to live consciously, mindfully, and intentionally, to help you consciously reframe, regulate, and realign, to respond to life from your authentic self, so you can respond to life's challenges with wisdom instead of reacting from your stress circuits. The keystone acts as a key insight, a catalyst for change, and a lens for reality. It reveals the one understanding that makes all other pieces fall into place. It catalyzes transformation, moving us from surviving to thriving, from stress to calm, from reactivity to conscious creation. Enables us to see three essential realities clearly, not through old wounds or fears. The reality of the world as it actually is, the reality of who we truly are, our authentic self, and the reality of others beyond our projections and distortions. It's the process that enables you to reclaim your creative power by consciously assigning meaning, transform challenges into catalysts for personal evolution and growth, and live aligned with your authentic self and purpose and values. In short, the keystone is both the foundation and the key for mastering stress and life. So let's begin by exploring how perception shapes our experience and why the keystone process is the bridge between confusion and clarity. So stress doesn't come only from events. It comes from how we see and interpret those events. The same situation, a comment, a delay, a setback, can be stressful or empowering, depending on the meaning we give it. We don't live life directly, we live our perception of life. That's why two different people can face the same event with one feeling defeated, the other feeling motivated. The only difference being perception and meaning. Within our whole self-intelligence system, we believe every one of us sees the world through a filter, either shaped by our identity, beliefs, emotions, attitudes, thoughts, fears, and mindset, each of which are the result of emotional imprints formed by earlier experiences, especially in childhood, or past traumas, big or small. I call this filter the I Beat FM framework. So I for identity, B for beliefs, E for emotions, A for attitude, T for thoughts, F for fear, and M for mindset. These filters, as mentioned, were formed by past experiences, meanings, and emotions. They act like lenses, tinting how we interpret the world. Those distortions trigger the body's threat system and stress circuits, even when there's no real danger. For example, if you believe you're not enough, you'll interpret feedback as criticism. If you fear rejection, a simple silence feels like abandonment. So your nervous system reacts as if the past is happening again today. So we don't experience life as it is, we experience it as we are. That is what keeps us in a state of chronic stress. Our perceptions are distorted by these old meanings and protective patterns. The Keystone process has been designed to clear this lens. It returns us to reality. It helps to give you clarity, helping you reframe perception so the nervous system can feel safe again. The Keystone process teaches us to move from meaning distortion to meaning creation, to see reality more clearly and consciously, and choose interpretations that serve growth rather than limitation. When we live aligned with the Keystone principles, we activate our wise self, the part of us that can observe, understand, and choose from a place of intentionality, mindfulness, and consciousness. Instead of living in automatic and default reaction, we become the conscious creator of our inner and outer experience. The Keystone process has 7 key principles, or what I call the Septima Prima. These are 7 universal capacities that unlock clarity and conscious living. Each principle shapes how we perceive the world. Each one helps us dismantle distortions, reclaim authenticity, reclaim our conscious power, and master stress by seeing reality clearly. The 7 principles are intentionality, meaning, awareness, compassion, allowing, appreciation, and finally, responsibility. Together, they form a complete process for conscious perception, a way to interpret the world as it truly is, not through fear or reaction. So now I'll go through and elaborate a little bit more, give you a bit more of an explanation about each of these separate principles. So principle number 1 is intentionality. So this is you choosing to meet life consciously. So intentionality is the first act of creation, the decision to live life awake and out of autopilot, or what I call default living. It is a conscious choice to meet each moment mindfully, fully present, engaged, and aware. It directs attention, and attention determines experience. You are setting the tone for how you meet life. So why does this matter? Without intention, you live by default. With intention, you live by design. It anchors you in the present moment where clarity exists. Intention clears the fog of distraction and emotion. It says, I'm here now. When you hold attention, you see what it is, not what fear predicts. Remember, we're prediction beings, which means we look to the future and try to predict it. But if we're looking through the wrong filter, then we are going to be creating incorrect predictions. So intention is about getting back to the present and actually seeing the world as it is, not how we're predicting it based on past stress circuits. So reactive living is unintentional living. Intentionality creates a space between stimulus and response. It's the birthplace of calm. It's the pause before reaction, the breath that says, I choose to respond, not react. So here's a small practice you can start using today. Start your day by setting an intention, such as, today I meet what arises with awareness and calm. A second practice you can use is before any task or interaction, pause and say, my intention is to meet this moment consciously and calmly. In both practices feel the shift from automatic to aware. So you go from acting on autopilot to suddenly being fully present and aware. So here's an example. Before replying to a stressful email, pause, breathe, Set the intention to understand before reacting. Then pay attention to the shift and how much more focused and in the present you are. You're not now wondering about something in the future. The second principle is meaning. So this is about being the creator of the meaning you give to life. So life has no inherent meaning. We give it meaning through perception. Meaning is the bridge between experience and emotion. Change the meaning and you change their experience. So when you unconsciously assign meaning through old stories, you create old stress. So stories that you created in childhood, interpretations you did with limited resources about a particular experience will now show up later in life, and then you'll trigger old stress circuits, and then that will become how you see current reality. Consciously chosen meaning transforms reaction into growth. So when you are being triggered and your stress circuits are being activated, you're going to be working on autopilot. So then you're just reacting to life. But when you are consciously making a decision as to the kind of meaning you're going to give to an event or an experience, you're actually now responding, and this is the opportunity for growth. So meaning reframes experience. Instead of this is happening to me, you begin to see that this is happening for me to help me evolve. So you change your vision of what's actually happening in the present moment. So stress often arises from the mismatch between the meaning we expect and the reality we experience. So conscious meaning making dissolves this unnecessary stress. Because when we are interpreting events, we're normally using our past beliefs to actually make a decision about what that experience is all about. And that could be completely disconnected from the actual reality of that experience. When we actually dissolve the meaning we've created based on past beliefs and we actually get to see what we're currently experiencing, we instantly remove any stress because there's no emotion attached to that particular event because now we're seeing it as it really is. Because remember, meaning is what gives an experience the actual context. So there is no inherent meaning in anything we experience. It's based on what we experience. It's based on what meaning we give to an experience, which determines the kind of like emotions we'll feel related to that experience. So we get to decide the meaning we give. Most of us are working on past influences, so past beliefs, past identity, past stress circuits, which are activating behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. And then we are predetermining what the outcome is of a particular experience. We're not even given, so we're working on autopilot. We're not even actually having the real experience. We're just seeing it through the lens, remember, of our I beat FM framework. So the idea is that we should be consciously determining what meaning we give to events, because this will change our perception of what is reality. So here's a practice. When stressed, ask, what meaning am I giving this right now? Then ask the second question, what else could it mean? Then choose the interpretation that empowers growth, not fear. So most of the meaning we attribute to experiences and events is fear-based or negatively based, and that limits us and gives a kind of more of a stressed kind of response and reinforces stress circuits. But if we choose to interpret things with a more empowering perspective, as opposed to a fear perspective, then we are actually creating a more positive experience. So, example, instead of my boss criticizes me and then I attribute meaning I'm failing, Try changing that perspective to give it a different meaning. So this feedback is a chance to refine my skills. So same experience, just different meaning being given to that same experience. So our objective is to give the real meaning based on the reality of the situation, based on the experience we're having in the moment at this particular present time, and not allowing past experiences influencing how we see the current experience. The third principle is awareness. It's about seeing what truly is. So awareness is the foundation of clarity. It is the ability to observe your inner and outer experience without judgment, to be able to identify and see patterns, causes, and truths as they are. So awareness is the lens cleaner of consciousness. Without it, you can't see clearly. You can't change what you can't see. So awareness turns chaos into comprehension. So awareness brings what you're experiencing and what you're feeling in a particular moment into consciousness, because without consciousness, you can't actually make any change. So awareness allows you to witness your own mind, because remember, we're perceiving what's going on, what emotions, thoughts, etc. are happening without actually placing any judgment on them. We see them as separate to ourselves. They're actually in a separate kind of space operating by themselves. So by doing this, you begin to see that thoughts, emotions, and sensations are not you. They're experiences moving through you. So we're trying to separate ourselves from our thoughts and emotions, because they are not actually us, they're just perceptions of reality. So without awareness, stress hijacks your system. With awareness, you notice tension early and can regulate before reaction. So you begin to see yourself go down a particular path and notice what's going on, because you're paying attention to what's happening in your body, you're paying attention to the kind of thoughts and emotions you're having. So it allows you to actually make a conscious decision on how you want to act, as opposed to allowing your default thoughts, emotions, and behaviors to kind of rule how you show up. So here's a practice. Throughout the day, pause and ask, what am I experiencing right now in my body, mind, and heart? Just notice, without trying to fix it, without trying to interpret it, without trying to judge it. Awareness alone begins the regulation. So here's an example. So when you feel anxious before a meeting or a difficult conversation, notice the feeling instead of fighting it. And just by noticing it, the awareness actually will start the process to regulation, because you're now on notice that you're actually having this kind of experience, and then that creates a space which gives you the other opportunity to kind of like make a decision on how you want to operate. The fourth principle of our Keystone process is compassion. So this is about opening your heart to the struggle, to the challenge, difficulties you may be facing, and committing to alleviating the suffering, the feelings, the negative emotions, etc., that you're feeling at this particular time. So compassion is empathy in action. It recognizes suffering in self or others and seeks to ease it. So it humanizes perception. Without compassion, awareness can turn into judgment, and compassion restores connection. It's the antidote to isolation and stress. So compassion softens harshness. So many of us are more harsh on ourselves than we would be on other people. So compassion and developing compassion softens this. It lets you see yourself and others with understanding, not criticism. So self-judgment is one of the greatest internal stresses. We all have our internal critic, and we're always judging ourselves, trying to predict the future, and then we also like at the same time judging ourselves and how we're reacting. And this creates a lot of internal stress. So when we are able to develop compassion, it shifts our body from protection to openness, from threat to soothing. So place a hand over your heart and say, it's okay. So if you're going through a particularly difficult situation, you're going through some kind of like challenge, a problem, etc. So put your hand over your heart and say, it's okay to feel this. May I meet myself with kindness. And then pay attention to how your body reacts. So your body is likely to feel lighter, it's likely to soften, your shoulders are likely to drop down, you're not like bringing your shoulders up to your ears, you're going to be feeling a lot more calm. And that's the physiology of compassion. So when you make a mistake, you do something that you're unhappy with, replace I'm so stupid with I'm learning and this matters. And notice the shift. So when we stop criticizing ourselves, judging ourselves, and then appreciate that, like everyone else on this planet, we are likely to make mistakes. We're learning to do things better. We're all trying to get better. Well, this creates a shift. So the fifth principle of the Keystone process is allowing. It's about releasing resistance and making space for what is. It's about radical acceptance, the art of letting life unfold without resistance. It's not passive, it's powerful non-resistance. So here's an example I like to use. So most of us have either been in a river or been in the ocean. So the river's got a current and it can catch you, and at the beach, in the surf, you have a riptide, which can pull you out to sea. So all of us would have to admit we are not stronger than the elements, and that we cannot logically resist the current or a riptide. So let's use the surf as an example because it's a better example and it's something I have a bit of experience because I used to be a surf lifesaver. So with a riptide, when you get caught into it, it takes you out to sea. So it's a current. It's basically the ocean comes into the beach and there is a hole in the sandbar and it's where the water needs to go back out to sea. So if you're not familiar with how to navigate a beach, you won't be able to identify. But if you pay attention, you can see water going back out to sea. And then if you watch surfers, they usually will jump on one of these to actually take them out behind the waves to stop them having to swim out to sea to be able to catch waves. So if you get caught in a riptide, it's going to be a lot more powerful than you are. And the reason most people actually die is because at a beach is because they get caught in a riptide. And it's not because they don't know how to swim, etc. It's because they try to resist the actual riptide. So they basically try to fight the element, the ocean, and they become worn out and then they can't keep their head above water. So what you learn if you are experienced with the beach is that not to resist. So does that mean you just let it pull you out to sea? No, it's active non-resistance. So what you do is learn to relax yourself. So you take in some breaths of air, you relax, you accept or you allow the ocean, the power of the ocean to take you, realizing that you cannot resist it because it's too strong. And if you do resist it, it will wear you down, just like life. If you resist life, it will wear you down. So there's a pattern here, there's a current. You can't fight the reality of the current. But you don't just let go and then accept your fate and then you get taken out to sea. What you can do is understand that either side of the riptide, that the ocean is actually going to be taking you back into the beach. So what you do is to swim with the current on an angle until eventually you don't feel the current pulling yourself anymore. And when you don't feel the current pulling yourself anymore out to sea, you can turn around and then you can use the actual like waves to bring you back to the beach. So now you're not exhausted, you're not worn out. You are now able to use the actual pattern of the sea, the ocean, the current, to actually take you to where you want to be, which is actually back at the beach. But if you had fought against it, resisted it, you would have actually eventually worn yourself down and you wouldn't have been able to keep your head above the water and you would have drowned. So, well, this is what allowing is. We allow life to happen through us. So life, in my context, is like a river. It's or like the ocean. So there's all these currents and they're running and we're part of life. Life is flowing through us. And so our objective is not to resist the realities of life, it's to understand the realities of life such that we can navigate it and use life to take us to where we want to go. So we don't fight against what is realities, we just choose to understand what the patterns are and to navigate those patterns and use the realities, the currents of life to get to where we want to go. Because then we're not burning a lot of energy fighting something we have no control over. We get to use all of that energy to navigate and use the power of the currents of life to get us to where we want to go. So, with allowing, the understanding is that resistance keeps you in friction with reality. So, by choosing to allow, you free energy to act where action is possible and where you can consciously place your energy. So when you allow, you stop fighting life and start flowing with it. You start navigating life. You start using the natural flows and patterns of life to get to where you want. You see challenges as currents, not obstacles. So most stress in life comes from resisting what is. It's from resisting against things that we have no control over. Allowing dissolves the inner war. Allowing diminishes stress because now we will only focus on what we do control, which is ourselves. It's our response to whatever we're experiencing. We're not trying to resist things that we don't have control over. So let's use an example. So like if you lose a job, or you're about to be made redundant, or there are about a bunch of layoffs, the economy is contracted, and now the company you're working for is looking to make a lot of people redundant. So most of us will, through fear of the unknown, because we might lose our job, will resist this, will complain, will challenge it. All our energy will be in resisting the reality of the situation, which is completely out of our control. Rather, we need to think about what we can do with this situation, what opportunities present, what we could do differently, how are we going to navigate this. So rather than wasting all our energy on things that we can't control, we need to focus on what we can. So we see this all the time in life. We complain about politicians, we complain about the economy, complain about conflicts around the world, etc. But we can't change any of these realities. We get caught up in all of the worry, anxiety about what's happening, but we can't change any of that. We need to accept it, not resist it, and just think about how do we navigate the kind of situation we're in at this particular point of time. When we stop resisting, then we diminish stress. And now our energy can be placed on finding solutions to the problems we're facing, solutions to the problems we see in the world. How can we influence what's going on? What can we do to contribute? How can we help ourselves? So here's a practice. When frustration arises, breathe and say, "This too belongs." So notice the relief that follows surrender. Or when you're going through a tough experience, you can say, I allow this. And then notice how that feels. So now you're not fighting it, and now you can just relax and you allow it. And now you have energy, have a state of mind. You're not stressed. You're not out of your prefrontal cortex into your amygdala and the kind of fight and flight. Now you're fully conscious. You're fully aware. You're able to recruit all of your conscious abilities to think about how you're going to solve the problem, how you're going to navigate the problem. You're not fighting it because you created space and allowed it to happen because you accepted that you didn't have any control over it. So here's an example. So when plans change unexpectedly, breathe and say, I can adjust. This is part of the flow. This was a big one for me to learn. Like I'm a kind of like A-type personality. I like everything to go to plan, a bit of control freak. I want everything to work when things don't work out, even small things like, say you go to the movie theaters and then it's all booked out. Then, I'd get all frustrated, get all bent out of shape, get all stressed. And then could I actually change the fact that it was all booked out? No. So I was wasting all the energy. And instead of accepting this and getting into flow, I could have found something else to do. I'll give you another example. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I was traveling to Costa Rica. So it was going to be like 3 or 4 weeks traveling around Costa Rica. So I was living in Sao Paulo, and then the airport's like about an hour away from my place. So I arrive at the airport, big line, everyone's going on holiday, reach the front, and then the desktop attendant goes, um, passport, etc. And now I need to see that you have your yellow fever vaccination. So, big issue on my part, I didn't actually check it out. So what could have happened, I could have got in a big discussion with the airport attendant because I was like getting quite close to the flight, and my house is like an hour away. So I was there like 3 or 4 hours before because Sao Paulo, like big city, gets very busy. So I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time, didn't get any problems. Lines, the actual way things get processed is very difficult. So I was there plenty of time. But then I found this out, and I was like going, wow. You know, natural reaction was like fight or flight, getting all agitated, getting all upset, wanted to have a discussion. But then something else happened. Then I kind of like went, I can't do anything about this. So I took a breath, didn't have enough. So then I went, okay, thanks for that. And then I immediately left, found a taxi, uh, paid the taxi some extra money to go as fast as he could back to my place. Along the way, I was like trying to remember where, because I'd actually done a yellow fever vaccination for when I was traveling around South America somewhere else. And then I was just thinking about where it was. And then during the 1 hour, I had plenty of time to kind of like analyze the situation. I was able to get in my house, find it immediately because I spent the time relaxed, not going, oh my God, I'm going to miss it, doing all the kind of normal things I would have done in fight and flight. Found the ticket, found the yellow fever vaccination like in about 1 to 2 minutes, had the taxi waiting for me, jumped in, got there, and was the last person on the flight. But my whole trip to Costa Rica could have been a no-goer if I'd been in fight and flight, not accepted the reality of this situation, not fought against it, not resisted it, used the energy to think about another strategy, was able to find a taxi that would, at the airport, there's these taxis called radio taxis, which are people who just work at the airport and then they know Sao Paulo pretty good and they can get there pretty quick to where you need to go, to know all the back routes, etc. And then so paid this guy some extra money. He basically got me there next to no time, considering it's like close to an hour, 40 minutes to 60 minutes, and got back just in the nick of time to get back on my flight. So what could have been the end of like a great holiday, because it turned out to be a great holiday, was all changed just by not resisting reality. So think about how many times in your life you've resisted things that have happened into your life, which led to you missing out on the opportunity to look for a solution and solving the situation you were in, or made the situation you're in even more difficult or more challenging. Well, that's the opportunity you have if you practice allowing. So the sixth principle is appreciation. So it's seeing the inherent value and abundance in life and yourself. So appreciation expands perception from scarcity to sufficiency, from it's the recognition of goodness in life, in others, and in yourself. So what you appreciate appreciates. It trains the mind to see possibilities and possibilities and opportunities instead of problems. So appreciation illuminates reality's opportunities, even in challenge. It transforms why me into thank you for the lesson. So gratitude lowers cortisol and increases dopamine and serotonin, the biology of calm. So when you appreciate, when you give yourself gratitude or grace, you release dopamine and serotonin, which lowers cortisol and so lowers the stress response. And so you go into natural calm. So here's a practice. At day's end, reflect. What can I appreciate about today? Even the hard parts. So try to identify things in your day that you can appreciate. Secondly, what can I appreciate about myself today? So there's a little bit of compassion here as well. So you may have had some difficulties in the day, but you showed up in the way you're proud of. And then this gets you to identify that and appreciate you for how you showed up. So this rewires the brain for resilience and joy. So when you're going through a particularly difficult situation, or you've had a setback, perhaps a job difficulty, relationship difficulty, business difficulty, rather than getting caught up in the situation, say to yourself, this setback is teaching me patience, and I appreciate the lesson. So the last principle is responsibility. It's about owning your response and accepting your power to be the creator of your life. So responsibility is a recognition that while you can't control what happens, you can always control how you meet it. You can control how you personally will respond to it. So it transforms victimhood into authorship. So you begin to reclaim agency over your life. Responsibility makes you the conscious designer of your life, not a product of circumstances. So life no longer happens to you, it starts happening for you or through you. I personally like to say it happens through me. The kind of like metaphor that I am in the river of life, and then I'm part of life and life is happening through me, as opposed to whenever things go wrong, saying, why does this always happen to me? Why is life like doing this to me? Which really doesn't help your situation. So when you feel powerless or that life is happening to you, stress spikes. But when you reclaim response and say, life is happening through me, it's creating opportunities for me, there are other possibilities, there are solutions I can find, I'm learning from this experience, well, then you get back to calm. So here's a practice. When challenged, ask, what response reflects who I want to be? So choose that particular response and feel empowerment replace anxiety. So here's an example as well. So in mountaineering, one of the common things they teach people is that the best, so you're in a difficult situation. So you're on the mountain, you don't know what to do, the elements are going against you, etc. The thing you need to do is make a decision. So, because if you sit there worrying, you don't actually take any kind of like action, then you actually send yourself up to the possibility that you may not actually leave that mountain. So if you're in that challenging situation, rather than getting freaked out, you want to make some kind of decisions. Like what happens if I make this decision? It could be the wrong decision. I could be going this way, I could be going that way, and it might not actually be where I need to go. What's important is that you actually make a decision, and then from there, then you can make other decisions. You can make new decisions, but you need to get started. So you need to actually take some kind of action. So you need to take responsibility for taking action in the current situation. And you can't control the elements, can't control the situation in, but you can control how you show up. You can control that I need to make a decision. And with action, you increase the probability that you'll be able to leave where you are on the mountain. So it's inaction, indecisiveness, what actually will have a negative impact on yourself, but consciously making a decision, I want to be empowered, I'm going to make a decision, I'm going to take action, is what helps you survive what could have been a very poor situation. So instead of stewing over, so let's use an example. So imagine if your boss or someone else treats you unfairly. So instead of stewing over unfair treatment, calmly express your boundaries or needs. So rather than just getting all frustration, getting all bent out of shape, getting all angry, and then like internalizing it and then stewing over it, you should take action, respond to the situation, express that your boundaries have been crossed, what you actually need to be able to navigate the situation a bit differently. So now you're in control of what you're experiencing and you minimize any kind of like stress. So each of these 7 principles are meant to work together and they each help you shift perception. So they shift you from distortion to clarity, and they restore you to be in alignment with your authentic self, in alignment with your values and your purpose, your character strengths, etc. So when you live using the Keystone process, stress becomes a teacher. It shows you where perception has drifted from the truth, and it becomes the invitation back to clarity. So let's have a couple of examples to kind of like bring this home and how you could use the Legend Life Keystone Process in different situations you may experience. So firstly, let's look at that health challenge or chronic pain. So picture the scene, you've been dealing with persistent pain and fatigue, you feel frustrated, limited, or even hopeless. You notice your mind saying, why is this happening to me? Will this ever end? Stress rises and your world feels smaller. So now let's bring the keystone to work. Intentionality. I choose to meet this moment consciously. You take a breath, come into presence, you shift from resisting your body to being with it. So now meaning. Ask, what meaning am I given to this pain? Your old meaning may have been, my body is broken. My body is letting me down. Now you're going to choose a new meaning. My body is communicating. It's guiding me towards balance and care. So body's giving you the message that it needs a different form of care than you're currently giving itself, because our body automatically wants to take us back to balance. Awareness. So you're going to observe the sensations, the feelings you're currently experiencing, but to do so without judgment. For example, you may say, there's heat here, there's tightness here, there's a bit of lack of mobility here, there's a bit of tenderness here. So you're going to witness the pain rather than becoming it. You're not going to judge it. This is bad. This is awful. You're just going to accept it. You're going to be aware of it, but not actually give it any power. Then you want to put your hand over your heart. It's okay to feel this. This is hard. This is difficult. And compassion softens the threat response and the nervous system begins to relax. And then when the nervous system relaxes, you're having the opportunity to kind of respond to your situation with more clarity. Now we're going to practice allowing. I allow what I can't control and I release the fight with my body. So allowing doesn't mean you surrender to your suffering. You just give up and say, oh, I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to leave it happen. I don't have any control of this. It just means you're going to end the fight with your body. You're going to end all the internal thoughts, emotions that you're feeling, the resistance to what you're experiencing, because you can't change this at this very moment. It's been a combination of things that have kind of accumulated over time, and now you're feeling the symptoms. So you're just going to accept it and allow it. Next step, you're going to appreciate yourself and your body. So say to yourself, my body is still here, still working to protect me. There are parts that are strong, capable, and healing. So appreciation activates safety and gratitude, the biology of resilience. Because not all of your body will be in pain. It may feel like it, but the reality is there will be parts of you that are working and operating optimally. And then the objective is to acknowledge that your body isn't letting you down. It's wanting to heal you and it's just telling you it needs some care. And lastly, responsibility. So you're going to assume responsibility for taking control of the situation. You're not going to play the victim. What can I consciously do today to support my well-being? Maybe it's rest, gentle movement, or asking for help, seeking out an expert, like someone in the Stress and Burnout Summit when it comes to burnout or other difficulties with regard to stress. And now you can act from alignment, not frustration. So now you get an opportunity to actually make a conscious decision on how you can deal with your current situation. So instead of playing the victim and saying, I can't control this, the world's going against me, my body's going against me, fighting and resisting, you now have the energy, you have the space to actually think of things you could do to change the current situation you're currently in. So notice the shift. So from being stressed out, now you feel empowered, you have motivation, you're ready to take some kind of action. And action is where you get to create change. So without actually having that space, you will stay stuck where you are. So the result of this is that stress decreases, your body softens, and clarity returns. The situation hasn't vanished, you're still experiencing pain, but your relationship with it has transformed. So you are no longer powerless, you're empowered. You're present and participating in your healing. You're now making conscious, intentional, and mindful decisions to heal yourself, as opposed to being completely frustrated, fighting it, and resisting it. Another example. So job loss or career setback. So you've just learned your position has been eliminated. Panic hits. What will I do now? I've failed. The body tightens. The threat system surges. The threat and fear system is just taking control. So now let's use the keystone. Firstly, intentionality. I choose to meet this with presence and awareness. So instead of spiraling into fear, you anchor in the present moment. Second, meaning. So old meaning, this means I'm not valuable. This means I'm never going to get a job. I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. A whole list of possible meaning we attribute. But when we are conscious, we can give a different type of meaning. So this is a transition, a space opening for something new. So then you want to practice awareness. So notice the sensations, the heartbeat, your heartbeat, shallow breathing, a lump in your throat, and you just want to simply observe. And when you are observing and you're able to feel these things, not get attached to them, you slowly begin to regulate because you're separating yourself from the feeling. Because these thoughts, these emotions, these feelings you're having, well, they are separate to who you really are. Next, compassion. This hurts. This is scary. And it's okay that I feel scared. So now you're soothing the inner critic that may have said, you should have done better. You should have known this was going to happen because this is not useful to you. So you acknowledge what you're experiencing, the challenge, the scariness, the fear, and then you give yourself some empathy and now create space for you to feel motivated to do something about it. So now allowing, so this is radical acceptance. This is what's happening right now. I can't change that, but I can choose my next steps. So allowing breaks the resistance that feeds stress. Finally, appreciation. I'm grateful for the skills, relationships, and experiences I gained here. So now you're acknowledging yourself that you've developed all these skills, relationships, experiences. You would never have got them if you didn't have this job in the first place. And then this appreciation widens your field of view. Now, possibilities, opportunities return because you're able to think about how do I use these skills, these relationships, and experiences for the next step. And finally, responsibility. What's my empowered next action? What should I do next to get to change the current situation? What's a possible solution to what I'm currently facing? What opportunities may exist in this current experience? So this may mean updating your resume, reaching out to mentors, reaching out to clients, contacts, taking a moment to breathe and reorient, thinking about going back to university, getting some additional training. A whole range of possibilities may open up if you are willing to go through the Keystone process and to assume responsibility for where you currently are so you can make conscious decisions, choices, and take the required action to get you out of the situation. So by responding, you go from panic to calm and clarity. You move from why me to what's next. So you transform this loss into movement and meaning, and stress becomes momentum. So rather than being stress, it's now excitement of the new possibilities. So the same energy that could have taken you into a downward spiral is now about making positive steps to change the situation. So let's have one final example to kind of bring this all home. So most of us have had some form of relationship conflict at some particular point of time. So I think this will resonate with most of us. So say you and your partner have had a very tense exchange. Words were sharp. You said things that you didn't really mean, but you were angry, you were upset. So emotions are pretty high. So you feel personally very misunderstood and hurt. So let's use the Keystone process. Firstly, intentionality. I choose to meet what I'm experiencing consciously. So instead of reacting or withdrawing, you pause and breathe. Your old meaning may have been, they don't respect me, they don't want to listen to what I've said, they don't understand me, they don't respect my feelings, etc. So the new meaning, so we're both trying to be heard. There's something important beneath this tension. This tension is because of something that is important to both of us. Now, awareness. So notice what's happening inside the tight chest, the anger, the sadness. And then by noticing, awareness turns this reaction into observation. You're able to see what you're experiencing without reacting. You created a space. So now you're not going to react. So what happens normally when we're in some kind of like heated discussion with a friend, with a family member, with our partner, with our children, we react. We immediately transfer energy. We start getting angry, etc. So now we've created a space. So we're able to observe. So we are giving ourselves an opportunity to do something different. So compassion, this is painful for both of us. May we both find understanding. So you're being compassionate for yourself, and you're also being compassionate for the person you have in your challenge with. So compassion dissolves the need to win and it invites connection, because now you want to deal with the suffering. You acknowledge that both of you are probably upset, hurt by the exchange. And then the compassion motivates you to do something about this. Now allowing. I allow the discomfort without needing to fix it instantly. So allowing keeps the heart open during a difficult exchange. So now you are allowing. What normally happens is, like, we get heated, we have our emotions, and then we want to hide from these emotions. And we do that either by shutting down or we go into fight and flight. Like for most of my life, it was fight and flight. So whenever I was upset, when my emotions were triggered, the ones I didn't want to experience, when I felt hurt, what I did, I armored up and wanted to attack. Then I became angry. Then I started like going on the defensive and all of these kind of things that will never get you to where you want to go. So by allowing the discomfort, you put yourself in a space where you can respond differently. So next, appreciation. So you can appreciate the relationship. So this relationship matters. You can appreciate the courage it takes to have honest conversations. So you appreciate the other person's courage, or you can appreciate your courage to have a difficult conversation. So appreciation restores emotional balance. And then lastly, responsibility. What can I do that reflects who I want to be here? So how many of us have reacted in an exchange with someone close to us in a way that was completely foreign to the kind of person we want to be? So by following this process, and then lastly, looking to take responsibility, you're now going to be questioning yourself, how do I want to show up in this particular situation? Do I really want to be the angry, defensive, hurtful person responding in this situation? Or do I want to be the calm, collected person looking to find some common ground? So, taking the opportunity to reflect on who you want to be, you can choose to listen with curiosity. You can feel confident in expressing your particular truth. And now you move from defense to dialogue. So if your other partner is following the same process and they're open to dialogue, they're not defensive, they're not allowing their emotions to rule the day, you both have an opportunity to find common ground and deal with the current situation. So this conflict now has the potential to be a moment of growth, not disconnection. Both parties can learn from the experience. How they can do better? They can learn because you're willing to listen to each other to find out why, in the first place, what was the source of the tension that led to this situation. So now you see the other person not as the enemy, but as another human being navigating their own fears and needs. And you can come up with some common ground. So in each of these three examples, the I beat FM filters, so identity, beliefs, emotions, attitudes, thoughts, fears, and mindset, originally would have distorted perception and activated the threat system, the fight and flight mode. The 7 keystone principles help you to restore clarity, align you with your authentic self, and help you to rewire the stress loop into a learning loop. So you're going to learn from the experience that you went through. So the keystone doesn't change reality. These events, these experiences still happen. You can't change what's happened, but it does change how you see reality. And when your perception changes, physiology follows. The nervous system regulates and calm returns. So now I'd like to take you through a guided keystone alignment practice. So I want you to close your eyes, take a deep, gentle breath. So in through the nose, out through the mouth. I want you to bring to mind a recent situation that caused you stress or tension. Something mild to moderate, not a big event, just something mild and moderate. Now, let's move through the 7 principles one at a time to see this clearly and consciously. I want you now, for intentionality, quietly say to yourself, I choose to meet this consciously. I want you to feel yourself come into the present moment. Next, I want you to ask yourself, what meaning did I give this? Then, what else could it mean? So feel that space that opens up as possibility returns. Now, awareness. Notice what's happening inside. Sensations, the feelings, the thoughts, emotions that may be coming up. Just observe them. Don't judge them. Don't buy into them. Just observe. Just notice. Now, compassion. Place a hand on your heart and say, it's okay that I feel this. So this softens the inner critic, the inner judge. Now breathe and whisper, this too belongs, or say, I allow this. And let go of resistance. Allow what is. Now ask, what might this very moment be teaching me? And feel gratitude for the insight that's emerging, whatever solution to the problem, what possibility, what opportunity it comes, because you've created that space for that to become through. And lastly, finally ask, so you're going to take responsibility. You're going to take responsibility for making a choice, taking action to actually move yourself forward. So what response reflects who I truly am? So I want you to let that answer rise naturally. You know what is the way you would like to respond. You know who it is you want to be and show up for this particular situation. Now take one more breath and silently affirm, I see clearly, I am calm, I'm aligned. Now I want you to gently open your eyes, pause. Now notice how different this moment feels. So now I want you to think about, to reflect on this question. What changed in how you see the situation that you imagined, something that happened in the past? How did this change now? Then I want you to anchor this with this clarity matters. So the situation may not have changed, but your state, perception, and power have. So that's the keystone process at work. So the Legend Life Keystone is your lens for reality. You see the world not as your fears project it, or your limiters, your I beat FM, but as your authentic self perceives it. You see yourself not as your limits define you, but as your wholeness expresses you. You see others not as threats or obstacles, but as mirrors and allies in growth. It helps you see clearly, interpret wisely, and act consciously. When you use it, stress no longer dominates, clarity does. The keystone doesn't remove challenge, it removes distortion. It's not about avoiding stress, like many people email and say they want to eliminate stress, they want to stop stressing, but that's not reality. Stress is something natural that we will experience, but we want to be experiencing things and seeing them accurately. We don't want to be misinterpreting things and seeing them in a distorted way, which leads to stress. When you see life as it is, not as fear paints it, your nervous system relaxes and your resilience grows naturally. So it brings you back to truth, calm, and alignment, the foundations of our whole self-intelligence. So during the Stress and Burnout Summit's Calm and Action Midday Reset series, one of the 4 sessions will actually guide you through a live Keystone exercise so you can experience the shift in real time. And then in the 14-day Stress to Calm challenge, which follows the summit, I'll also introduce you to one Keystone practice to help you train this new way of seeing. So hopefully you enjoyed this masterclass, got some real value from this. Hopefully you now have some clarity about how you can see things differently. You can actually make a conscious decision on how you want to see the world. And by making this conscious choice and making a conscious decision to see it in a way that's more empowering, that you can actually reduce your stress. So thanks for that. I look forward to hearing your comments in the comment section below this video. So thank you, and then I will see you shortly within the summit.